Great. Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here again. Mondays in a conference, pretty wild, but I think it's kind of a fun way to start the week and get oriented. My name is Jim Eikenberry. Most of the time, I'm the wetlands specialist for the USDA Natural Resource Conservation Service. I say most of the time because I'm also doing another job too right now. But this is sort of what I've been up to the past 13 years. And so we lovingly, Chris must be here, right? It's the Jim and Ryan show. You're here, like you've seen it the most time. So we got to spice it up for our long-term audience members. So we're going to keep it entertaining. If there's nothing else, you're going to get to see cool pictures of wetlands and critters. So like even if the rest of your mind wipes away, enjoy that for your afternoon. But hopefully we'll have a good discussion, good interaction, good takeaway, and get you guys some interest and excitement and education about wetlands restoration and wildlife habitat connectivity. So again, Jim Eikenberry with the USDA Natural Resource Conservation Service. I'll be chatting at y'all for the beginning, but I'll take a step back and hand it over to my co-presenter, Ryan Crean, who'll give a quick intro, and then we'll do the Jim and Ryan show for you.
Hi everybody, I'm Ryan Crean. I'm a biologist with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service at Essex Junction, and we collaborate quite a bit, so including in our presentations. So,
awesome. All right. Thanks, y'all. And this is being recorded by Orca. So, hey, Orca, and hey, Montpelier. And also, thank you. What's your name? Who helped us?
Fern.
Fern. She worked IT magic, and her powers made it so that you can see this presentation. Fern gets all the credit. So we had a little miracle here today, and we are grateful because IT is not always our friend. So quick USDA, who are we? What's it all about? For the Natural Resources Conservation Service, we used to be the Soil Conservation Service, and folks have heard about the Dust Bowl. Unfortunately, there's some of those conditions in the Midwest these days too. It was a tragic environmental situation, led to people being motivated to do conservation at a very locally led level with federal government input. And nowadays, we're the Natural Resource Conservation Service. Our motto is helping people help the land. We work with private landowners to incentivize them to do conservation work on their land, and we work with partners to make it all happen on the ground because there aren't enough of us to do all the work, and we're all in this together. So we're talking about wetlands. We're going to go back in time a little bit and think about why are we having a conversation about wetlands and wildlife habitat needs for connectivity. It's because there was disconnection. Millions and millions of acres were lost primarily due to agricultural conversion by European colonists, and it was shocking in some of these states what percent of their wetlands were lost. You know, Iowa's 89%, Illinois 85%. We're talking millions and millions of acres here. It's a shocking change of landscape to take land that was either prairie potholes or, beautiful bottom and hardwood swamps, all sorts of different type of wetland ecosystems related to floodplains that are then related to modern flooding. Disconnection happened. What it looked like in our more modern era, post-World War II, folks had all sorts of cool equipment and companies to make that equipment and a mindset to use that equipment to change the landscape for a utilitarian purpose to make that land yield for us. And it made sense at the time. And that's one of the things that's part of the story too, is people did what made sense at the time and they thought was right. And we're doing now in our era what we think makes sense at the time, what we think is right. So they weren't doing this with evil in their hearts. They were trying to grow food for people. And it wrecked a lot of wetlands. Here in Vermont, it was about 121,000 acres of loss. Most of that is still in agricultural use to this day. I'm confident everybody in this room that has had some locally grown food in Vermont or has had some dairy products that came from, a cow that grazed here in Vermont or was fed here in Vermont, they've had some drained wetland provide food to them. It's part of our reality. It's part of our land base. And for some people, it's part of their economic vitality that they're using those drained wetlands to still farm that land. It's part of the reality. Some of this disconnection was pretty profound. They went to town with some impressive equipment on some very wet land. They really were able to get in there and get the work done. And sometimes it was just, this crazy truck with the backhoe is an amazing piece of equipment that got into a lot of places in Bennington and Rutland County in particular in these photos, and folks in trenches, and they really alter that landscape. So there was a lot of wetland loss. We're going to enter into, unsurprisingly, the interactive part of our presentation. Oscar the Grouch. Oscar could be grouchy if you don't want to participate. Oscar could be grouchy because of wildlife habitat disconnection. Who knows? Just was fun to throw in there in the presentation. Get a little whimsical when I'm working on a Sunday putting a presentation together. So Oscar's there. If it doesn't make sense, that's okay. But the question for you all that I really would like real life human beings to actually interact with us and answer is, what are the wildlife habitat connectivity and other impacts of wetlands drainage from that agriculture conversion? Could be in Vermont, could be nationally or globally. What do you think are some of the impacts, either to the land, critters, cycling critters, what is out there? So I know there's extroverts in this room that have been sitting and been quiet all day and are longing to talk. So some of them must be here. There we go, Kensley.
How is that fragmentation and loss of genetic diversity?
There you go. Ooh, nice. So loss of genetic diversity, habitat fragmentation. Other thoughts? Oh, I'll start calling on people. I'm not afraid. If you haven't seen the Jim and Ryan show, we've got no pride. Come on. Heather, what are your thoughts?
Maybe like loss of
You can pass the person next to you because she raised her hand. Yeah.
Filtration for agricultural runoff.
Sure. Yeah, some water quality impacts because these wetlands used to be handling that. Awesome. Yes.
Loss of flood attenuation functions.
Sure. Yeah, if the wetlands were holding all that water and now that's not really a thing anymore, it's definitely having impacts downstream. Anybody else? Any other thoughts? All right. I went easy on you. I didn't pick on too many people. Thank you, Heather, for being a sport. So potential disconnection impacts. Kensley already had one that wasn't even on the slide, so bonus points. Hydrologic disconnection, change flow pathways. So if you take something that had diffuse water going like this, and then you rip it all and put it in a ditch or put it in a pipe, it changes how that water is moving across the landscape and the speed at which it's moving across that landscape, the speed at which it's getting to where it's headed downstream. Floodwater storage was mentioned, certainly a major issue. Nutrient cycling, if you're disrupting everything, especially when you think about the biota, the animals that are involved, there's a lot of things that are getting broken or happening in different pathways or not happening. Sediment transport and capture, that's a major issue. And then this aquatic and terrestrial habitat connectivity, then disconnection, changes in structure. If what used to be a beautiful forested wetland is now a flat field that's growing corn, those are having different impacts on wildlife, different impacts on flood flow attenuation. Also, when you drain wetlands, you facilitate other potential types of disconnection. Roads have huge impacts on wildlife in our world. And housing, people need a place to live, but we can't pretend that as we build millions and millions of homes, it doesn't have an impact. And there's certainly plenty of homes that are built on drained wetlands and filled wetlands. So as we're thinking about disconnection, and then Ryan's part of the presentation talking about restoration and reconnection, we want to think about sort of what kind of happened and who was impacted. So getting a little bit into the who was impacted and also the promise and delivery of great photos. We do have game cameras on a lot of our wetland easements, and so all these pictures here are from a partnership with the National Wildlife Federation we did a few years ago, showing some of the critters that are out there. White-tailed deer out there, definitely looking at the camera like, what was that all about? We've got bobcat on these sites. They really need hedgerows and riparian areas and places to move along, to have connection along landscapes. There's some great studies by UVM out on that. Otters, we love seeing otters on the Otter Creek. They're cute as all get out. They're also fierce predators, and they're amazing, and we feel good about things when we see them on the landscape. But they're definitely impacted when you start draining the wetlands and messing with the riparian areas. Same with our muskrat friends, especially if they get all trapped out. Another factor. Wild turkey wasn't doing so great in the early days of a lot of hunting and trapping and wetlands impacts. Great blue herons, they love some fishing on our wetland easements. And that was just a gratuitous because I just love the game camera picture that we happened to get of a great blue heron catching a fish. Green heron, hiding in the corner there, but it's there. Wood ducks, they need these wetlands. They need these, areas to breed. And human disconnection, thinking about our earlier talk this morning, right? People, post-glaciation, native indigenous people lived on this land and used wetlands extensively. When European colonists came in and impacted the land and moved them around and killed them, there was huge disconnection and cultural disconnection from